Welcome back to Think Design Work Smart. I'm Alex Bolboaca and I'm coming to you from the Mozaic Works studios. And the topic for today is Scrum Masters and what makes a great Scrum Master. And to discuss this topic, I have with me, once again, after a long absence, Adi. Hi, Adi.
Hello.
Before we go in this topic, what else have you been doing?
Too much. I've dealt into the, let's say, very vast area of agile contracting and corporate agile contracting, which is, let's say, a lot different than what it should be. A lot of training and coaching and discussions in these areas. Continuing to do the usual stuff around teams and in local and general improvements in the organizations.
Right. I've also been doing a bunch of trainings on agile product management. Just finished one, like 20 minutes before we started this recording. And it's been very, very interesting to have conversations about this. And I think it's very good that more people are thinking about products. It was time to start thinking in agile organizations about products rather than projects or whatever else we are thinking until now. Okay, and the topic for today is great Scrum Masters, and you shared a series of tweets from Geoff Watts. He has the handle Geoff C. Watts. I don't know this person. The description is helping people master themselves and enable others. TEDx speaker, author of Scrum Mastery, Product Mastery, The Coach Casebook, Team Mastery, The Agile Podcast.
He wrote a few books, which are good. And he's also consulting and doing stuff like that. What is written here, I think, comes from his experience of consultancy.
So let's look at these characteristics. He says there are 9 characteristics I've seen in the best Scrum Masters. Now, typically when I see lists like this, I feel like they are simplified, the very simplified version of things. But it's a good starting point for a conversation. So, and this is what I like more.
I guess these are kind of the basic traits in a way. Which is the simplification goes towards what is the bare minimum, let's say. And of course you can and you should add a lot on top of it.
Okay. So the firstly, they are respected. Great Scrum Masters are respected not for their technical prowess, but for their ability to build, guide, and grow high-performing teams. They are respected by their teammates and the influential leaders within the business.
Yes. Now let's look at what happens typically in the organizations. You take someone who has some or no experience. Fast, they go to a training, they go to they're going to be certified, and then there you are, you're Scrum Master now. Go along. What happens is that you also need to have the ability to gain that respect, but also so that means that your organization needs to give you some confidence and also to empower you in some way. Unfortunately, this doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I've seen often that people were pushed into a Scrum Master role without having the necessary skills, or maybe even not the necessary how do you say, interest in doing that. But I think many people underestimate the importance of Scrum Masters, particularly in the beginning of a transition like this.
It's the secretary who he puts meetings there and makes sure that everybody joins. That's what people think.
And I like how he points to a few things. One of them is psychology. So a Scrum Master should be very good at applying psychology. And second, grow high-performing teams. So you need to know what high-performing means, how to get there. And a lot of it is psychology because you cannot force people to do things. And so it's a lot of working with people actually to overcome various challenges and blockages.
Yeah, and then it says influence leaders. So influence is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, influential leaders. These two words together are already something very difficult.
So if you, in order to be respected by influential leaders within the business, you need yourself to have influence. So it's not just, it's not basic at all.
So let's go to the second one. The great Scrum Masters are empathic listeners. They listen with intent, understand nuance, and continually ask why to uncover the root of the problem. They don't control or lead the conversation. They are superb listeners and ask thought-provoking questions.
I think this goes more towards the typical coach approach of asking questions. I can say that this is a very important skill that, again, unfortunately, not a lot of managers have and not a lot of Scrum Masters have, as far as I saw. And you need, I guess, a lot of training to be able to do that, to be able to work like that. It's not training like, training how to ride a bike or, I don't know, drive a car. It's training with yourself. And that makes it a lot more difficult.
And I think this relates also to an ability of taking yourself out of the context and asking questions as if you are coming from outside.
Yes, and this is extremely problematic for people who are skilled, are technicians, or knowledgeable in the area for that conversation, let's say, or for that situation. I think that's even more difficult to not state your opinion when you have one, one, but you shouldn't. You should just ask some questions. So that's about not controlling the conversation.
Yeah. Great Scrum Masters are tactful. They are always pushing for better, both within the team and the wider organizations, but they do it with considerations, care, and connection. Another good trait, because you want the team to improve, but you don't want to, how to say this, to alienate them.
And that means also that you need to understand the degree of how much to push and when to stop. It's not always push, push, push. If you don't push enough, not much will happen. If you push too much, you'll have the opposite and people don't want to do anything anymore. You also need to consider periods of improvement and periods where you need resting after this fatigue of doing a lot of new stuff. And about consideration, care, and connection, I think here is also about the fact that you need to see who are the change agents who can do this as well. So it's not just one person pushing. You need to understand how are the connections in the organization and who can also be a change agent.
Yeah, the way I heard it described is it's a dance with the organization, it's a dance with the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, you have to know when to, the steps, when to go forward, when to go back, and so on.
And but it's not the same dance with each organization, and sometimes the rule can change. It's in the middle of the dance, so
Yeah.
it's tricky.
Great Scrum Masters are resourceful. They focus on helping teams find creative, innovative solutions to complex problems. They don't waste time complaining, but rather work out how to make the best of the situation. I think this is true, or should be true. To me, this is the agile mindset. Okay. One of the examples I give for agile is let's say you've traveled to London and there's a volcano eruption and you cannot go back for you have to delay your flight back. And what do you do? And there are probably a few options. One of them is to get really annoyed and kind of drown in the annoying part of it. Another one is to say, yeah, okay, let's kind of work around this. And the third one is to organize a conference. And this is, the third option was picked when the volcano from Iceland erupted and a bunch of agile, like Robert C. Martin, and I think it was Michael Feathers and Rachel Davis. There were a bunch of people in London there, and they realized, we don't see each other so much, so let's organize a conference. And they actually did a conference called Open Volcano. So not only they were not annoyed, but or maybe they were for a little bit. Okay, everybody's human.
But what can you do? You cannot fly for a few days. Who knows how much? So,
but then they realize we actually have an opportunity now, and organize that. So don't waste time.
That's about
complaining.
being creative.
Yeah,
that's the creative part.
Another way I describe it is kind of like a good Scrum Master. When you push him out of the door, he comes back through the window. There's always a way of pushing things forward.
And if you complain, that's what you don't do anymore. That's why I think he says there, don't waste time complaining. Because if you complain, it's just, life is hard and it is what it is. So you cannot do anything and you stop.
Right. And by the way, I said he before, but I think some of the best Scrum Masters I know are actually women. So, great Scrum Masters are alternative. They question the accepted norms and the way we do things around here. They walk a different path and explore what lies beyond, and they help others create a new order. Kind of similar with what we are saying. Look at what you need to improve and then find alternative solutions to it.
Yeah, but this is a typical thing. We've always done things this way. Why do you need to change? So it's natural. It's human to think like that. Maybe even if you were part of the current of designing the current way of working, who knows, a few years back, and now someone comes and says, no, let's improve it. You might even take it personal. So that's why I think here also the tactful part is involved, and the alternatives also look at the continuous improvement part and trying to always find more things that can work better.
Yeah, I guess it's also about knowing and being informed of what other teams do, maybe other organizations, what new practices, techniques,
Yes.
A lot of experimentation. So not only don't accept things for what they are, but rather try to experiment with a few different things and see which one works in your organization and how and so on. Great Scrum Masters are inspiring. They understand what motivates people and teams to unlock their potential. They inspire teams to deliver more than they think is possible. It's not about getting everyone to work faster. It's about elevating everyone's performance. Very important thing in the end. We don't necessarily look at in Agile at working faster, but more at getting better as a team.
As a side effect, you might work faster, or maybe you might work less with the same results. So who knows?
And once again, so understanding what motivates people and unlocking potential and inspiring teams. This is psychology, right?
Yeah. Because if you go deeper into this, it's also about creating a kind of a safe learning space, safe experimentation space in the team or in the organization. And it's also about having very honest conversations with people about what they want to do and where they want to go from where they are, what they want to learn. And as much as possible, if you can, to help those people achieve or learn or go there where they need to go, they want to go. So that's a very important part. And inspiring, I think it also has to do with the fact that Scrum Master is in the same way. It's is trying to see where they want to go and or from where they are now. So I think it has also to do with the personal example.
And I think that, at least what I'm seeing until now, there are a lot of reasons for picking people who are not technical Scrum Masters.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, so as a technical person, I will know some of the solutions, I will have an opinion, I might try to influence people towards my opinion. I might think more about the technology and the solutions than about the team and so on. So this is one reason why I think that, and I've seen how Scrum Masters who are not technical are actually doing a great job in this area.
Yeah.
It's much easier for a person who's not technical to learn the technical jargon, enough of it to communicate with developers, than it is for developers to learn psychology.
Yeah, I said this before. I think that the best Scrum Masters come from psychology, HR studies, that area. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
That was my experience. Every time I worked with such a person, they became really, really good in very short time.
Yeah. Great Scrum Masters are nurturing. They foster an environment where individuals and teams can grow. They build relationships, fuel energetic debates, and help create an environment where everyone can thrive.
Yeah, this is what I mentioned before about safe environment and so on. That's about growth. I think also sometimes what happens is that you need to negotiate with the organization to have that space of growth, because sometimes, the organization pushes you to deliver a lot, and there's no space, no time, nothing. And that is problematic when it happens. That might hinder you from being nurturing as a Scrum Master.
I'm curious about the energetic debates part, because in my experience, teams tend to have energetic debates anyway. But I think it's more about funneling those debates towards a good result or a good outcome.
I also saw something which is a lot worse: no debates.
Yeah.
Because the manager, the boss, the team leader, the whatever says something, and it should be like that. So that I think is the worst situation. And then I also saw debates which go wrong or go very personal or go into directions that don't make any sense. So you need to get out of those situations.
Yeah, and I think part of it is facilitation. So knowing how to facilitate towards a good outcome. It's great Scrum Masters are enabling. They aren't the ones who know all the answers, but the ones who enable their teams to find their own solutions. They aim to help the team get to a point where they don't need a Scrum Master.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably the most weird part. The thing that I explain is that you need to become yourself useless, right? Which is kind of weird thing to say, right? Because why do you get a job? Why do you get hired in such a place? Don't you want to stay there? I mean, that's the typical approach in the industrial age, right? Get the job and you want to stay there as much as possible. And what we're saying here is that no, you need to get to a point where they don't need you anymore.
This reminds me of a story when Rachel Davis was hired at Unruly. And at Unruly, they were doing already extreme programming, and she was hired as a coach. And she was like, but how can I help those people? Because they already are doing all the practices, all the things, and she still found ways to help them by reorganizing certain things like products and product management and all that. So going a bit higher up. So the thing is, you always have something to do when you have this set of skills in an organization. You won't lose your job, but yeah, it is a very weird thing to do. Now I'm curious, how long do you estimate it takes a team to get to the point where they don't need a Scrum Master?
It's interesting because it has a lot to do with the team's team's interactions and how the people are. I think if you have the people who have this attitude of honest debate and openness, willingness to learn, and you have the context, the organizational context where you can work like that, you can learn, you can thrive. I think Scrum Master shouldn't be needed for more than somewhere in between 9 and 12 months, even 6 and 12 months.
Yeah, so I think 6 months is the minimum, but I'm more pessimistic than you on the maximum. It's probably around years, kind of the average, 2-3 years. And I would expect some
you need
teams
to have the same
never.
people, right? That's the idea. You need to have a stable team, and
yeah,
that's difficult.
But I think even then there's a lot of work to be done with certain teams. It's
yeah, that's what I said. If you have the teams who are a team who is really has really the right people from the mindset point of view, I think you get that faster. If not, yes, it's years.
Yeah. And I can think of at least one team that I don't see working without a Scrum Master. So.
Yeah, some teams always need a Scrum Master. But that has also to do with the fact that people change in those teams. And you go back to where you were. So you advance, and then someone leaves and you go back. So it's kind of a never-ending story.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is communication and collaboration skills. if these skills, because if you've worked separately for many years and suddenly you are getting into this context where you need to communicate, collaborate, and so on, it's not an easy thing to do. Particularly if what you loved to do was to write code and basically communicate with a computer rather than with people. So there is some practice needed to get to the point where you can actually communicate and collaborate with people.
Yeah, and that takes years. That's true. If you want to. If you don't want to, it never happens.
All right. And the last one, great Scrum Masters are disruptive. They aren't afraid to stir the pot, and they are determined to make change happen even in the face of inertia. They are prepared to ask for forgiveness when permission is unlikely to be granted.
Yeah, this one is tough typically. Especially if you're hired in an organization, that means that, your boss could come to you and say, "Why have you done that? They didn't give you permission to do that." And that's kind of tough. I mean, you also need to be prepared to do something else, or even to leave the organization if you get to that situation. Yeah. And I think that's from time to time, Scrum Masters and sometimes quite often Agile coaches need to get rogue and not respect the things that the organization says or wants, and have a very good reason not to. Typically, that's easy to find.
Yeah, so I very commonly do that as an Agile coach in organizations because I get this freedom of going places where I'm not supposed to be or things like that.
Of course. And then, but and then you get asked, what are you doing here? Or, why is there a problem? No. I mean, just like, whatever.
Yeah, I got asked often, "Oh, hi, I don't know you. Who are you?" "Hi, I'm the Agile coach." And then somehow the conversation stops because they realize, oh, okay, it's that guy. It's but if you are inside the organization, it's a bit more challenging to do these things, I know. But basically, who was saying, poke the system? You should poke the system. Yes. This is basically what you need to be doing, and it's not necessarily to do it in a really aggressive manner, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it's poke the system. It's not, hit the system.
Yeah. So you keep poking the system in various places and ask questions or try out things and see if anybody complains.
Yeah.
So I found it interesting that the conversation continues and there's an answer. It almost feels like they are a single point of failure and bottleneck. And that really...
This is the point.
It's precisely not that.
Yeah, but it was like a joke anyway.
Yeah, it was a joke between these two, but it's quite funny. So I've just come out actually of a conversation that we are discussing about Agile product management, but we ended up talking about Scrum Masters. One of the questions was about that. And we discussed about Scrum Masters yesterday as well, because they asked me about how to maintain a product culture in an organization. Well, part of it is Scrum Masters, because you need to have somebody to keep the culture. And this is one thing, so you should look at Scrum Masters as from an anthropological point of view. They are also there to preserve a culture, to help teams build a culture, and then to preserve that culture in face of inevitable changes that will happen. So one example of practice that you can do for this is incrementally building the team agreements, the social agreements that you have within the teams, that can range from things like we don't accept being late to meetings, and or we do accept 5 minutes delay to meetings, or whatever you decide, but those become kind of your rules of a mini society inside of the team. And the Scrum Master helps you build that. And
yeah, but that's the idea. If you don't have that Scrum Master anymore, you should have the team members doing that. So I guess that's the point about when you stop needing a Scrum Master, when the team members will do that and will respect the principles and the values that they have. They will
improve them, change them in time. Yeah.
Yes, but also they will make sure that if something happens, they protect them.
Yeah.
So when you have that in a team, I think you don't need a Scrum Master anymore. And this goes the same way here. But I guess you need a person who's really knowledgeable in many areas. And in a way, it's not that you don't have Scrum Masters anymore. I guess what's interesting is that everybody becomes a Scrum Master.
Yeah.
In that team.
Yeah.
That's when you don't need a Scrum Master anymore.
Yeah, and often what happens is you either do rotate for facilitation, at least, if you need facilitation, or you just forgo facilitation because you start working so well as a group that you don't need that anymore.
Exactly, yes. So that's the idea about product culture. If you have people like that, change agents, people who think about improvement, think about continuous improvement, think about these social aspects and the social rules that work in that organization, the reasons why they work like that. I think you don't need Scrum Masters anymore. But to build that, you need some people. Call them how you wish, but you need them.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add about Scrum Masters? Anything that's missing, or?
Yeah, I don't like the name, but I like the concept. The name is weird, and always felt weird. Like the thing with the master, it sounds quite abrupt. But I think the initial point was that you needed to have someone who is the master of the way of working and so on. Quite often, especially with young organizations, it feels like they are the master of the team. So it's just like another manager. The name isn't at all brilliant, and whatever. It is what it is, but I think we need to say that the master there is not about mastering people. It's not about anything else, and maybe it should be thought something more about a facilitator and a coach and something like that.
Yeah, well, one way that I used to explain this is that he's more like a master of ceremonies.
Yes,
on one hand. But I also point out, we are talking about anthropology. I think that Scrum Masters are actually the modern shamans, right? The role of shamans in societies was to maintain and to improve the social knowledge, let's say, or the habits that they built in time, and they were good for the society and all that. And that's basically what you're well, one aspect of what you're trying to do as a Scrum Master. But I always find it funny to discuss about shamans because it sounds so far away from what they are doing. But if you look at it, it's very close.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So, Scrum Masters. I think that's it for today. Thank you, Adi, for the
Thank you as well.
suggestion. So that's all for today. I hope you found this interesting. Thank you kindly for the view. Leave us a comment if you have any other questions or opinions about this. How are Scrum Masters in your organizations? Are you a Scrum Master? I'd like to interview more Scrum Masters. So if you are a Scrum Master and you have any experiences with teams, different experiences, I'd be very interested in having a conversation with you here on this channel. Leave us a like, a subscribe, but a comment is, I think, what we appreciate the most because we can have more conversations around these topics. Thank you kindly for the view, and until next time, remember to think, design, and work smart.